Welcome back to The Real Story. Once again, the party of Defend Democracy seems to be openly flirting with sedition. And this time, by doubling down on a cringeworthy video in which sitting lawmakers appear to be encouraging active duty service members to blatantly disobey orders they personally decide are unlawful. Because nothing screams, I back the blue and I support the troops, like turning every single E3 into this country into a rogue Supreme Court justice in the middle of a firefight. So please recall for just one moment this cringe-inducing video that was uploaded by Michigan Senator Alyssa Slotkin just last Thursday. Many people out there believe it was an open call for seditious behavior at best, and perhaps a call for something even darker at worst. Watch.
The threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law
or our Constitution.
We know this is hard.
And that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
the Army,
our Navy,
the Air Force,
your vigilance is critical.
And know that we have your back.
Because now, more than ever,
the American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Wow. So President Trump saw the same video we just saw and wasted zero time in responding to it. In fact, here's what he fired off on Truth Social within minutes. It's called seditious behavior at the highest level. Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand. We won't have a country anymore. An example must be set. From there, fast forward about 72 hours, and the cleanup crew was already sweating. For example, here's what Senator Slotkin, the first lawmaker seen in that video, and a former member of the CIA for what it's worth, said about it on Sunday during an appearance on ABC's This Week.
Do you believe President Trump has issued any illegal orders?
To my knowledge, I am not aware of things that are illegal, but certainly there are some legal gymnastics that are going on with these Caribbean strikes and everything related to Venezuela.
Well, there it is. But hey, if that cowardly backtrack doesn't say it all, then how about the response from Colorado Congressman Jason Crow, also a Democrat? He appeared on Face the Nation on Sunday to discuss it too, and desperately tried to name just one single unlawful order by the president. But spoiler alert, he came up empty.
We wanted to start a conversation, and we did, about the dangerous rhetoric this president is using and the threats that he's made to use our military in an unlawful way.
Specifically what?
Well, send troops into Chicago, send troops into polling stations, kill terrorists' families, arrest and execute members of Congress, shoot peaceful protesters in Lafayette Square. Need I go on? He has a history of doing this. And if we wait until the moment that he gives a manifestly unlawful order to a young soldier, then we have failed them. We have to start that conversation now and get people thinking about the distinction, which is exactly what we did.
Yeah, so those were comments, not orders he gave, and social media posts and like.
This isn't principle, people, and it looks like preemptive mutiny dressed up as patriotism. Which brings us to a real patriot who's been highlighting the danger of these remarks. He's a member of Congress, a Bronze Star recipient, a retired Green Beret, and he's had enough of the nonsense. Freshman Congressman Pat Harrigan of North Carolina's 10th District knows exactly what Democrats are doing. And he knows that it's reckless. He knows their leadership at every single level is reckless. And not only is he here to call them out for it, but also he's here to discuss his new bill called the No Free Pass for Felons Act. This critical legislation would condition federal grant funding on states adopting stricter accountability measures like prohibiting cashless bail and other policies. And it would require threat assessments to be performed before cashless bail releases are approved. So joining us now to explain why this bill is long overdue and why Democrats are melting down over it is the man who penned it, North Carolina GOP Congressman Pat Harrigan. Congressman, thank you for joining me.
Riley, great to be with you in studio.
It's an honor to have you, and I'd like to start with some of those allegations from Congressman Jason Crow. So he's making some bold accusations of the president, saying something about ordering people to shoot peaceful protesters, among other things. I want to get your reaction to that.
Well, none of this ever happened, right? And I think that's the point, is that the Democrats are going after something here that has fundamentally never happened. And you had Alyssa Slotkin and many of the others say that themselves in follow-up interviews, right? Point to one example where President Trump has given an illegal order. Well, we can't do that, right? I think it was just very poor choice for these members of Congress, senators, to put this video together, because the only way that it came off, the only way that it could have come off, is inferring that President Trump has been issuing illegal orders. That is something that just seeds confusion in the minds of our service members all across the country. It's something that divides the country, doesn't unify it. I expect a lot better from my colleagues, who I have a lot of respect for, some of those who were in that video. I think that they made a very, very poor choice.
Well, and to be generous, because that's a fair point, Congressman. What we heard from Crow is the goal of the video was just to start a conversation and to bring awareness to what could happen. I have my own ideas about what they were really trying to do, but I want to get your thoughts about this just to set the record straight.
Well, again, I think the only thing that could have been perceived from that video is the inference that President Trump has been giving illegal orders. And actually, it couldn't be any further from the truth in terms of reality, right? Every time that President Trump, which he does push boundaries, right? President Trump does do that, but we want him to do that. When he does push those boundaries and the courts kind of bring him back a little bit, what they don't focus on is he actually brings it back in line with what the courts say. It's the exact opposite of what President Trump is doing that they're talking about. They're not highlighting the fact that President Trump is actually just being a bold president, trying to achieve things for the American people, particularly in the space of law and order, crime, which has gone rampant across all of our nation's cities. I think this is something that Americans broadly want, is this bold action from our president.
I completely agree. So speaking of, Congressman, you have new legislation. And it's fascinating because it gets to the core of the problem. Systems like cashless bail, which create this revolving door for career criminals. Criminals like the man who murdered Irina Zarutska in your own home state just months ago, something we covered here on the show. I want to get your thoughts, first of all. What would this bill do, and how is it being received by your colleagues in Congress?
Well, what this bill will do is it will force out into the open the decisions of judges and magistrates that have not been enforcing the law, right? We have not been punishing criminals for criminalistic behavior. Yes. We've simply been letting them back out on the streets and then feign surprise when they actually commit crimes again, because there's been no punishment for their actions. This actually creates a requirement for dangerousness hearings when releasing or considering the release of felons back onto the street before trial. And what that will do is that'll just put everything out into the open. It'll make these judges and magistrates, their decisions, much more transparent for the people that they serve, particularly in their local communities who are going to be affected by their decision. And it'll let them be held accountable for those decisions. And if states don't comply, if localities, municipalities, counties don't comply, we're going to withhold some of their federal funding as a mechanism of enforcement, because right now the federal government has very little teeth into actually enforcing the law, even when our states and our counties are breaking the law.
That's the problem, isn't it? Is that the people who actually release these violent maniacs onto the streets aren't the ones who get the call about a son or a daughter who's been killed, or a brother or a sister, right? And there was a case recently, I believe in Chicago, Illinois, where a young girl was doused with gasoline. She suffered horrible burns by somebody who had a prior record of 72 arrests.
Yeah.
Any normal person who looks at the story says, first of all, why was someone with a rap sheet that long even walking around on the street? That person should not see the light of day again. And yet they're walking around the streets of America just waiting for their next victim to prey on. I want to get your reaction to that and what it tells you about the current state of the criminal justice system in America.
I would certainly agree that that's a great explanation of the problem, right? Is we just have this recidivism within these career criminals that have absolutely no accountability coming in from the system. And we somehow have this belief in our cities with this liberal thought theory that if we're just nice to criminals, they won't commit crime anymore. And that's just not the case. And ordinary Americans are paying the price for that type of failed policy, right? And failed leaders who are implementing that type of failed policy. There's got to be some sort of accountability here. We've got to have folks that are in a position to do something, like we are in Congress, to step up and say, you know what, enough is enough. We have to start punishing criminals, and we have to start holding those who are supposed to be punishing criminals but aren't. We have to hold them accountable.
Completely agreed. Now, this next question, it calls for a little bit of speculation, so forgive me for that. However, I do wonder why. You mentioned this nonsensical theory that if we just convince murderers that murdering people is wrong and that it hurts our feelings, they'll stop. But you look at cases like Irina Zarudska, that's someone who's beyond rehabilitation, right?
Yes.
Someone who's willing to go out and kill somebody, stab them in the neck with a knife. That's not someone you can just level with.
No.
And you don't have to have a JD to understand that.
Right.
You don't have to be a philosopher either. So I want to get your sense of what the motivation is for these cashless bail systems and why there is this open hostility for anybody in Washington who wants to uphold law and order.
I don't get it, Riley, but the best that I can kind of describe it is that it's like Democrats think that they see the world like kindergarten school teachers, right? Where just everything is fine, everything is great. All we got to do is take a nap, wake up, shake it all off, and everything that's bad in the world will kind of take care of itself. That's just not the way that the world works, right? And we've got to understand, we've got to have principled policies that are actually based on the way that the world works. And the way that the world works is there's some really bad and evil people out there, and they're going to do some really bad and evil things to good people that we know and we love. And it's gotten too much across the country, right? And whether it's crime that originates here with American citizens or whether it's illegal alien crime, all of these things need to be addressed. They need to be addressed comprehensively because the American people have been paying the price for far too long because of bad policy.
Very well said. Congressman, I want to thank you for your time today, truly, and thank you for what you're doing in Washington because it's long overdue.
Well, thanks so much, Riley. Appreciate what you guys do. It's always a privilege to be with you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Riley.
Coming up next, we need more statesmen and fewer politicians in our government. That's a very obvious fact. Now, a candidate for U.S. Senate in Virginia, David Williams, a veteran, will join us next to discuss his upcoming candidacy. More details about what he's running on after the break.